Hello, I'm Sarah Alexander and I'm going to be speaking tonight about my book, Spiritual Intelligence and Leadership, From Manager to Leader in Your Own Life. And I'm really going to be explaining what that actually means. But let's start off with a definition of spiritual intelligence, because I know what it means to me, and probably everyone's got slightly different definitions as to what spiritual intelligence actually means. So for me, spiritual intelligence is that inner wisdom, that inner knowledge, that deep understanding, that kind of inner learning that is within each and every one of us. And that intelligence really knows the ultimate plan of our lives individually, as well as the ultimate plan of all lives, individual and collective plan. And really, to put it very simply, it is a complete inner guidance system. Many people think of their spiritual intelligence as their intuitive thinking, their inspired ideas, their creative ideas. And also for many people, they access its wisdom when they need help solving problems. And let's face it, we all need some help sometimes, don't we, with the challenges, the issues, and the problems that come up in our lives. And I think the value of using spiritual intelligence for helping kind of in our problem-solving repertoire, if you like, is that because our spiritual intelligence can see the wider plan of our lives, it can see the bigger picture, it knows how things are ultimately meant to work out. And it also knows much more than we know. And if you think about it, when an issue arises, we never ever know the full facts, do we? We may think we know everything, we may think we know what's going on with people, but we never really quite know exactly the full facts and what really is going on with people, and yet our spiritual intelligence does. And that's why it can guide us so easily to a win-win situation. And we don't really have great predictive powers. Some of us have developed psychic understandings, but often they can be slightly off, they can at times be wrong. Yet our spiritual intelligence can and does know what the future holds for us. And I think most importantly, the reason why it's so valuable to rely on our spiritual intelligence is because it doesn't have all the kind of mental filters looking at situations when we're looking at the challenges in our lives that we need solutions to. So calling upon your spiritual intelligence, using it as the guiding answers that come to you is just so valuable. And personally, I try to refer to it as often as I can throughout the day. And it is just that wisdom that is inside of us, that if we quiet our mind, if we still our mind, can actually give us a really creative and inspired answer, can really see what is the right action for us to take. So spiritual intelligence is very much a transition from being very outer directed, very affected by our circumstances and our life events. We place a lot of store, don't we? And I'll be talking more about it in a moment, on the outer situations of our lives. And yet our spiritual intelligence is always guiding us inwards. It's guiding us to listen, to still our minds, to focus our minds in quietness, and just to meditate, to listen. And meditation really is just focusing the mind. It's nothing more than that. But by focusing the mind on the breath, perhaps just on noises, on sounds that you can hear, or deep within yourself, it allows you to be less kind of affected by what's going on, all the mental thoughts that are going on up here that are chattering away to us, and more able to hear that wisdom of our innate spiritual intelligence. And I think for me, one of the key things that's really, really helped me is that our spiritual intelligence guides us to let go of all the limiting beliefs that we hold about ourselves. And if you guys are like me, you've probably got quite a lot of limiting beliefs. You know, we all, you know, however brilliant our parents were, throughout our childhood, it's so easy to take on beliefs that, you know, we're not worthy, we're not good enough, we're not of value. I can see you nodding at the back there, you know, that we're not lovable, we're not wanted. And what our spiritual intelligence does is it guides us into situations that help us to gently let go of those beliefs, and also we can ask it to help us move on from them. And for me personally, that's been really, really valuable. You know, I had quite a challenging childhood where, although I was brought up in a very devout and religious childhood, I also experienced sexual abuse from a close family member and quite a traumatic passing of both my parents at quite a young age. And so I really had to learn to rely on my spiritual intelligence that was here to help me, but, you know, let go of all the beliefs I kind of had within my mind as a result of that. And so it has helped me to really clear, you know, feelings of worthlessness, feelings of valuelessness, just feelings of not being wanted, and to let all of those go. I really narrowed it down into 7 key lessons, and I just want to cover perhaps some of the more important ones tonight. And I think for me, what has been the most important one is the whole thing about security. You know, I was definitely someone who was insecure, full stop. And like many people who are insecure, you know, we try to surround ourselves with situations and with people and with life experiences that make us feel secure. Be it a nice house, plenty of money in the bank, a good relationship, you know, a thriving business, a really stable job. And all of those things, you know, to a degree, do bring us feelings of security, don't we? We feel more secure when we have a lot of those things. And yet, we've only got to watch the news and know that each and every one of those things can be just taken out of our lives instantly. Really quickly, we can lose all of those things that we base our security on. And so what our spiritual intelligence is always guiding us to do is to really base our security within ourselves. So we don't feel secure because we live in a really nice house in a really great neighborhood. We feel secure because of that energy of the higher power, the energy of our spiritual intelligence that is within us. And when we have that firm foundation of inner security, challenges can come along. Often we do lose some of those things that we cherish, and I'm sure everybody sitting here has had experience of loss of things that we've cherished. And yet we can survive, we can hold our security, we can still feel a sense of security despite losing all the things that often we hold dear. So really your spiritual intelligence is always guiding you to be in a reference, to be connected to that energy that is within inside us. And so then things can come into your life, things can leave your life, and you can just be completely okay with it. Yeah, there might be some sadness as things go, and of course there's going to be joy as things arrive, but we can kind of take that ebb and flow in our lives an awful lot more easily. And isn't that just a valuable thing to be able to have, that real deep inner security that allows things to come and go, allows people to come and go, allows us to let go of things really, really easily. And of course, from security comes another key element, another key lesson we have to learn, which is about faith and trust, and a real deep faith in the ultimate goodness of life. Because, you know, you only have to watch the news at the moment to think, it's not very easy to have faith right now, is it? You know, you look at all the things that are going on and you just think, God, is there any goodness in life? And yet our spiritual intelligence is always, always guiding us to that deep sense of faith that whatever is happening, however awful things may seem, there is this inherent arc of goodness that is evolving things, that is moving things forward, that is ultimately bringing things to our greater good. And the more we can believe in that, the more we can trust in that, the more we can have a real strong faith in that goodness in life, actually the more we're able to just let go, surrender, and just allow things to work out for us. Because if you're like me, you've probably got a mind that at times wants to step in and control things. Who's experienced that? Yeah, want to step in and control things, want to take charge, want to keep things under control all the time. And yet the more we trust in the goodness of life and that inherent, energy that is supporting us at all times, actually the more we can just let go and relax and just allow things to be taken care of for us. And guess what happens when we relax, when we let go? Life does just get easier. And you can apply this thinking in business, in relationships, whatever your role in the world as a team member, as a team leader, as the leader of an organization. The more you relax, the more you let go and allow that inherent flow of life to kind of take you, take your business, take your organization, the more things can just work out and do work out really, really easily. And I think, part of controlling life is that what we do, and this is another lesson in spiritual intelligence, is we try to step in and place a whole load of intentions in situations. I intend that this is going to happen, and I'm in this meeting now, and I intend that that's going to happen, and I want that result, and I want it to work out that way. And I think as we become more spiritually intelligent, our intentions are not, well, I want this to happen and I want that to happen. They're like, okay, how can I be kind in this situation? How can I be loving in this situation? How can I be understanding or compassionate or tolerant or patient? So that we bring good qualities into situations rather than the I intend that this is going to happen or I want this to happen. And this is how our spiritual intelligence wants us to be. It wants us to kind of allow all that goodness that is inside of us to come out to us, out into the world, out into the situations and to all the people that we find ourselves interacting with. And that allows us then to be freer to get the spiritual intelligence working for us and that inherent goodness of life to really, really be on our side clearly and obviously in every situation. So I'd like to just finish my talk just with one key thing, which is about leadership. Who here is actually in a leadership position, either team manager, business leader, business owner, leader? Anyone here actually in a leadership position? Yeah, okay, absolutely. Right, so let me just talk a little bit about an approach to leadership that our spiritual intelligence guides us towards, and that really is about seeing everyone as equals. We all have an ego, a personality that wants to make us feel superior to other people, have a whole host of reasons why we're better than, maybe our position actually gives us that superiority. But the more we can approach leadership from a place of equality and a real recognition of the value and worth, and that's my final thought really, is that in all we do, if we can see the worth in everyone, see the value in others, the more we focus on that, the more it helps them to bring it out in themselves and us to bring it out in them. And that is what our spiritual intelligence will always be guiding us to do. And you might intelligence, there really is one way, and that is through stilling your mind, through allowing yourself some quiet time, some contemplative time. It's really difficult to hear your spiritual intelligence if your life is on go the whole time. It's just not possible to do. So the more you can take time out, some people have a regular meditation practice in the morning or a meditation practice in the evening. I actually think it's really valuable just to have little pauses throughout the day where you just connect inwards, you just still your mind, you just listen to what's going on inside you and ask questions of that intelligence. And the answer will come often when you're not expecting it. You might be in the shower, you might be driving. I get a lot of my spiritual intelligence when I'm driving, actually. So, it just comes, not always in your time of meditation, but by stilling your mind, you're kind of accessing those brainwave frequencies that your spiritual intelligence can give you ideas through. So meditation really is the answer. Are you a meditator? Well, just the beginnings of listening to your breath, just stilling and focusing your mind on the breath, it really helps. Really helps. Yeah, thank you. The question is, really what's the best way to meditate? Is it best to do guided meditations, or is it best to do meditations on your own? I have to be honest, if someone is good at leading a meditation, it is easier to follow a guided meditation, because if someone's got a very calm and sort of even voice, your mind then can rest on that voice and it gives you a place of reference and it makes it a lot easier to still your mind. So particularly as you're learning and developing the ability to still your mind, it's actually much easier to do guided ones, as long as you have a sense that the voice kind of resonates with you, that it works for you. If people's got a voice that's sort of going up and down, that's not so easy, but a very sort of calm, gentle voice, it works really well. So I would definitely say stay with your guided meditations. And actually a quick plug, I've got quite a lot of guided meditations on my website, alexander.co.uk, and it's on the meditation page. Experienced? I think for me the most profound was actually with someone I didn't like at all. I really have to be completely honest, I did not like this man in the slightest, and in my mind I had a whole host of reasons not to like him. I write about it in the book actually, and I detail the process I went through. But what I had to train myself to do was to see beyond his personality and all of the actions of his personality that I didn't like at all, and see that that's just what his ego was doing, and yet within him was his true self, that place in him that actually was loving, that was kind, that was, his perfection, his wholeness. And I did actually, for a whole month, every day, I did like his 10-minute focus on his inherent goodness, on his inherent, loveliness and kindness and generosity. And I actually ended up, not long after that, having a really kind of long conversation with him where I just stayed really present, and he came and sort of like poured his whole heart out to me about his life experiences and the challenges that he was going through. And I was just able to stay completely present, completely in that place of love with this man, and just listen without any judgment, without any thoughts that they were good or bad, and just be in that place of total acceptance with him. So it's sort of gone from being highly fraught to him saying, I really need to speak to you, and as a result of that, focusing on his highest and best, and also of course forgiveness as well, looking to forgive him for all those host of things I thought he'd done wrong. So yeah, it was that for me. Yeah. From what you said, you're talking about how as you were able to extend love for others, you felt greater love for yourself, and also you're able to look at those places where you're perceiving others as doing wrong and doing things that were perhaps against you, and look at, well, what is this projection? What do I have to learn myself about it? What is it that I need to heal within me that actually this person is just hide as well? So yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, okay, so the question is, what if you don't want to give that person 10 minutes of your time every day for 30 days? Well, the way to do it is is this someone you see on a regular basis? The more you can be with people and focus on their true nature, on their true self, the goodness that is within them, you know, like anything we focus on, it expands, it comes out, we draw it out of people. So that's just a really great way to start healing relationships, being with people, understanding people better. And you know, I also think that, you know, when people act in strange ways or challenging ways, we really don't know often what is going on with them, what is the kind of the underlying thinking that's making me believe that. And I think if you come with that focus of, well, their personality's acting up a bit, they're suffering a bit from their psychology, but within them there is this, you know, really beautiful being that is their true self, that actually is a loving being. You know, you can then more easily be with people who are kind of acting in ways that, you know, you might want to label as angry or depressing or negative or stressy or whatever.
So if you bumped into someone you hadn't seen for a while and you harbour a lot of negative feelings towards that person, like, what would you actually do? Like, would you just walk past them with loving thoughts, or would you engage?
Well, I think this is where you let your spiritual intelligence guide you. So the question is, if you met someone who you hadn't seen for a long time, who in the past you had harboured negative thoughts towards, would you speak to them? Would you move past them? How would you interact with them? And you know, this is where we need to be guided. It may be really valuable for you to have a conversation with them and actually have a conversation that heals the relationship. Likewise, it may be totally unnecessary. And if you really have forgiven them such that you can see their highest and best, you know, there may be no need whatsoever to have any kind of interaction with them. Just send them a loving thought and pass on by. So it's like what feels right in the moment, and this is where we reference that inner intelligence. And if we have done our meditation in the morning, we have kind of focused and stilled our mind, that referencing of our inner intelligence becomes an awful lot easier. So the question is, how has my spiritual intelligence guided me? One thing, as I spoke about earlier on, is it's really helped me to look at and clear many of the beliefs that I had that were limiting me, that were holding me back, that were causing me to not be effective in situations. But I think the main thing that I really, but I really think that I've noticed perhaps is that, you know, throughout my life, particularly perhaps my work life, I can see how, you know, I really let my spiritual intelligence guide my business, and, you know, I try to tune in and ask, you know, what is it my business is here to do? What can I do through my business? And I can see how, you know, this whole kind of concept of spiritual intelligence came out of those very questions. And you know, we all know about, you know, the learned intelligence, we know about our body's intelligence, of course there was then an awful lot about emotional intelligence, but I think spiritual intelligence really is something that's coming to the fore a lot more now. And I got a lot of guidance about, really, I was someone to promote spiritual intelligence, to highlight people's understanding of it, and that's really been the kind of key driving force behind my business, helping people really get an understanding of spiritual intelligence. And that was just my spiritual intelligence that just gave me the idea. You know, I wrote my first book on spiritual intelligence in 2009. It came out early 2010. And you know, I'd never really heard of the concept spiritual intelligence before I got this guidance to, all right, I'm going to write a book called Spiritual Intelligence in Business. And I was like, oh, okay, right, what's that about? And particularly in both the books I've written, I've just allowed them to kind of be written through me. You know, when I started the book, I had no idea where either book was going to go. I have to be honest, I had no idea what the chapters were going to be, but I just meditated before I wrote, opened myself up to hear the spiritual intelligence, and then let stuff kind of come out into my laptop, and books have come out of it, and numerous talks and workshops have come out of it. So yeah, it's kind of particularly, I think, most clear in my business life, and that really is my main focus now, is around spiritual intelligence. So. I wouldn't call it channeling per se, channeling being when you actually allow a non-physical being to kind of enter your body and mind and speak through you. I would say I had some mind thought in it, certainly, but I always made sure I wrote from a very still mind. So before I did any writing, particularly with this book, I really stilled my mind so that what I got sort of guided to write came from stillness. And yeah, sure, you know, my mind had to interact with a little bit, and I had so many synchronicities about people to write about in the book, because in every chapter I write about a sort of a famous person to highlight how they bring spiritual intelligence into the world. And I got guidance about who to write about. There was one lady I'd never heard of before, but I just got her name in my head, and I thought, no idea who this is, I better find out. And I kind of did a Google search on her, so, you know, some mind stuff came in at that point, and there it was. She was really perfect. In fact, she's in the chapter on inner security. So yeah, it just sort of, I wouldn't say channel, but written from a still mind is what I would describe it from. One is spiritual intelligence sounds a lot like intuition and creativity and flow. That's question one. Question two is, how often do I meditate? Yeah, and then question three was, you know, how do we distinguish, I think really is what you're on, how do we distinguish between intuition and egoic thinking? Okay, so let's do question one first. So question one then, is spiritual intelligence the same as intuition? Yes, it is. It certainly is our higher guidance, our intuitive and creative ideas. It is about our flow. But I think it's a further step than that, in that it's always guiding us to a connection to our true self, a connection to our inherent perfection, beauty, loveliness, that part of us that is pure love, that is totally loving and that is totally lovable in all situations, versus, and that's what I call the manager in our lives, our egoic thinking that often has a whole host of very different thoughts about us, about others, about life and our life experience. So for me, our spiritual intelligence is guiding us to that place of truth. And that's a step beyond what just intuition is, that perhaps helps us solve problems in our lives or gives us a sense of direction and a new creative project or something like that. So I think they're very interwoven, and for me, spiritual intelligence goes a step further, really pushes us to our true self.
So would you say it was bound up with service as well?
Yeah, absolutely, because so the question is it bound up with service? So it's bound up with service in that really, as our true selves, we are loving and able to extend love and give kindness and give compassion in whatever behaviours that might be. And it might just be a kind word or a kind gesture or a smile or physically doing something like volunteering in a charity or running a charity. So yes, it is very much bound up with that, as well as bound up with how we behave really in our everyday lives. In terms of meditation, what I do is I meditate in the morning and the evening, not often for very long, sometimes just up to 20 minutes, sometimes up to half an hour in the evening. But what I do a lot of is regular stilling of my mind throughout the day. And I'm a student of a book called A Course in Miracles. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, which is a psychological training program on universal spiritual principles. And the way that works is just a regular stilling of the mind with a focus for the day that helps you go inwards, that helps you connect down to that place of stillness where your truth resides, your true self resides. So that's what I've almost put more emphasis on that than my morning and evening meditation practices.
That was against the last question, because I think if you tap into that, you won't get confused with wishful thinking.
Well, no, I think it's a very valuable question, that, because, you know, our ego does come up with often very inspirational ideas, very creative ideas, very wonderful ideas, and yeah, wishful thinking ideas, and it's very easy to think that that's intuition. I think intuition, by definition, comes from that place deep within us. It's almost, I kind of feel it has like an otherworldly quality to it. It's just, it clearly comes from beyond our current mental structures when it's real intuition. And it's something that we absolutely just know is right. There's no, I need to phone a friend about it, or I need to talk this over with people. We just like, yep, that's what I need to do, or that's what I need to say, or that's how I need to look at that situation differently. And you know, the other thing is that our egoic ideas change quite frequently. You know, we have one idea to do this, and a little bit later we have another idea to do that, whereas our intuitive ideas are continuous and repetitive, and to be honest, our intuition says the same thing over and over again until we jolly well get it. And so a good question to ask is, you know, what regular and repetitive ideas have I had that just are thoughts that I've kept on having, that have repeated themselves, because invariably that is our intuitive ideas, that is our inner intelligence. Welcome to being the leader, which is actually a transition we're all on, whether we like it or not, and whether we're consciously aware of it or not as well.